Um, so current developments in sustainable product development are promising and can be seen as the motor behind the transformation to the circular bio-based economy. And at the same time, this transition didn't take place yet. Recent studies indicate that such a transition is promising, although the actual practice is still marginal. And if companies, for instance, economic actors engage with circularity or bio-based, it is often still a side event and not part of the core business. In the sustainability literature, this is depicted in the following way. We are currently between what is called pre-development, so small changes in the system, but not yet visible, and the take-off phase, in which structural changes gain momentum. This is just the example of the Netherlands, but I think it's safe to say that we can see comparable pictures in other parts of the world. Currently, especially in the European context, because I'm living here, I'm living in the European context, huge investments at policy level are there to enter the next phase and to establish this transformation to the bio-based economy. Normally, the explanation why the transition isn't achieved yet is found in the complexity of this transition. The idea is that the transformation to sustainable development is a complex process, Phil already mentioned, a wicked problem, and result of co-evolution of economic, technological, institutional, cultural developments at multiple levels and along different timescales. This is often depicted in the following way. The idea is that the transformation to the bio-based or circular economy evolves when developments at three levels align. At the micro level, so the level of new technology and innovation, it concerns innovation practices and developments. At the meso level, at the middle, you see current institutional arrangements, dominant practices and regulation, for instance. And then the highest level, this macro level, you see long-term trends and events that put pressure on the regime. At the micro level is, for instance, seen as important to provide room for frontrunners to promote radical innovations. And at the regime level, for instance, we can identify vested interests as a barrier to this transition, like the fossil fuel industry, like Shell in the Netherlands. They buy patents of sustainable technologies, for instance, but do not necessarily exploit them, but leave them on the shelf in order to safeguard their market position. I want to make three claims, or I want to reflect a little bit together with you on three claims that we can then discuss during the discussion. The first claim is that current innovations for circular and bio-based economy are framed within the market or economic logic and miss the normative aspects of sustainable development. And I will argue that the transformation to sustainable development requires a fundamental reflection on the role of economic actors in society and in the environment. The second claim I would like to share with you, and that I will develop a little bit in this paper, is that normative and social economic aspects are missed in current research and debates in the circular and bio-based economy. And that these let's say, socio-ethical barriers can be seen as the main barrier to the transformation or transition to sustainability. And the third claim is that responsible innovation can help to address this normative and socio-economic issues in this transition, and therefore can be seen as a main driver towards sustainable development. So let's first look at the first claim. What explains the barrier to the transformation to sustainable business practice, for instance? In this multi-level perspective, there is a strong focus on technological challenges and on policy and regulatory drivers and barriers for this transformation. What is often missed is the normative and socio-economic barrier to this transformation to the circular or bio-based economy. I don't want to deny that issues like policy and technology are important, but I would like to focus on these normative aspects. In current research on sustainable innovations, for instance, there's a strong focus on what can be called the economic fix in sustainable innovation. The main question is, how can we technologically and economically valorize biomass, for instance, or can make recyclable products in a sustainable way? In the Netherlands, for instance, where I live, the bio-based economy is largely determined by biomass as a source of renewable energy and not yet by higher level specialized bioproducts like biomedicine. The focus on biofuels doesn't necessarily lead to sustainable development, but to a greening of coal-fired power plants, as some of my colleagues argue. This is comparable with findings in the circular economy literature, which indicate that the innovation trajectories are largely determined by recycling and not by sharing, reusing, and repairing. That is, potential more sustainable practices. The concept of logics can explain how values impact the issues that are seen as important to address in innovation. In current sustainable innovation practices, it is the economic or market logic that explains why companies in the bio-based or circular economy currently focus on these profits, efficiency, and operational effectiveness. The economic or market logic is appealing to circular economy as it holds the promise that it can continue business as usual. So the idea is that renewable resources plus business as usual constitutes a circular bio-based economy. Now, of course, technical feasibility, economic feasibility is important in life, but is it sufficient to make the transformation to sustainable society possible? In first instance, sustainable development is a normative concept. It doesn't describe the world as it is, but the world as it should be. Compare it, for instance, with child labor or food safety. These are not questions of efficiency and optimization, but normative standards of what to do and what not to do in innovation practice. In the concept of circular or bio-based economy, also a normative standard is at stake. And we talk about bio-based or circular economy, which means an economy that relies on renewable natural resources. But in practice, the renewability of natural resources is not taken as such a normative standard for innovation, but as a guideline for optimization. Now compare this with the idea, compare it with the idea that we should only try to avoid child labor or try to guarantee food safety. That wouldn't be acceptable. So in current practices of sustainable innovation, sustainability is not taken as such a normative standard. On the contrary, the environment is seen as a subset of the human economy, that is, as a resource for production. And in this conceptualization, natural capital is seen as interchangeable with and replaceable by human-made capital. But the question is bio-based economy just a new way of doing business as usual in which biomass is seen as a source of added value for economic returns, or is its ambition to establish a new or different economy, one that operates within the carrying capacity of the biophysical system of planet Earth? To give you an impression of what such a circular economy within the carrying capacity of planet Earth would look like, we turn to the model of, I show you a picture of the model of Rockström. I guess you are familiar with these type of pictures at least. Rockström operationalized the biosphere in terms of 9 planetary systems. Green shading represents safe operating space. Red shading or orange, orange towards red, shading represents the current performance. The model enables to evaluate and compare performance of bio-based or circular business practices with non-bio-based practices. It shows areas where new product development and innovation has to be avoided and where space is for further development. And I mentioned this example in particular because, and it was really strange, I'm not sure whether how this is in Brazil, but yesterday it was in the news that also one of these 9 dimensions, water, is now turned into red, into a red area. It was very strange that this was announced yesterday or the day before, but the Dutch newspapers didn't publish on this, which is, in my view, rather strange. What it shows is that it provides this type of planetary boundaries, provides a model of biophysical boundaries for any development in sustainable innovation towards a sustainable society. This model of biophysical boundaries can be depicted also in the following way. Business or innovation, private innovation in business, societal and biospheric systems are nested systems in which business is seen as dependent on society and in the end on the biosphere. The biosphere as planetary boundary affects business activities in a normative way. And this requires that economic actors engaged in sustainable innovation operate within this carrying capacity of the biosphere. So to sum up what I've tried to show so far, current practices in the circular bioeconomy are framed within the market or economic logic and miss the normative aspects of sustainable development. I would argue that a real circularity or real sustainability requires fundamental reflections on the role of economics in society and in the environment, with significant consequences for what can be achieved and what can be done in innovation practice. Circular bio-based economy cannot be understood as a renewable energy practice plus a business as usual. It requires an economic activity of innovation, sustainable innovation, within the carrying capacity of the biophysical system of planet Earth. So the second claim that I wanted to reflect upon together with you is that the normative and other socio-economic aspects are missed by current bio-based and circular practices. This can be seen as one of the main barriers to this transition towards sustainability. Based on a long-term analysis, Verbong and Gil in 2007, for instance, already argued that we cannot expect transitions to a new bio-based energy system to take place easily because currently they are not driven by environmental concerns. This means a lack of consumer concern and/or a lack of consumer demand for such sustainable practices. And this lack corresponds with a lack of the social dimension in the supply of bio-based and circular products and services. Now, what are issues in these social dimensions in sustainability transitions leading to bio-based or circular economy? What is often mentioned is the role of technology, and then especially digital technology. The increase of technology drive the circular economy practice. And for instance, to give the example of the agricultural sector, the application of digitalization, artificial intelligence, etc., provides huge opportunities for sustainability, but also raise all kinds of societal concerns. For instance, very generally speaking, about the industrialization of the agricultural sector. And in Europe, we talk about megastalls. You can talk about horizon pollution, stench and noise disturbance. But also, if you talk about artificial intelligence and digitalization, about the huge impact of all these type of technologies on ownership, privacy, control of data, power structures, etc., etc. On the one hand, societal resistance is fueled because the high expectations regarding new technology are often not redeemed. On the other hand, we can say that the more radical an innovation, like life science technologies for bioeconomy, the more it will raise societal questions, and the more responsibility of actors is required. So to conclude regarding my second claim, the normative and social economic aspects are often missed in current efforts of sustainable innovations towards circular and bio-based economy. This may cause societal resistance against circular bioeconomy, and especially if their amount increases, like what we see nowadays. As such, the lack of the acknowledgement of these normative and socio-economic issues can be seen as one of the main barriers to the transition towards sustainability. This transformation requires an extension of the economic and market logic with a social logic or social ethical logic in order to safeguard the public good, and not only technological feasibility and economic profit. Currently, little research is on how a social logic can be implemented in the bio-based circular economy, how the economic and social align or conflict, and how multiple actors in the bio-based economy collaborate to address socio-economic issues collectively. It's very just anecdotal. On a yearly basis, I attend conferences on circular economy or bio-based economy, and nobody is talking about these type of normative issues. It's always mainly about the technical and the business issues. Now, one way to substantiate the idea of a social ethical logic is the concept of responsible innovation. And I leave the explanation of responsible innovation because I think that Phil did a great job by introducing that topic. So keep that in mind as the frame of responsibility and responsible innovation that I have in mind here as well. Responsible innovation provides a sort of systematic method for the identification, evaluation, and management of ethical and social issues within technological developments in order to achieve ethical, acceptable, societal, desirable, and sustainable outcomes. Let's look at responsible innovation and circular and bio-based economy from an integrative perspective. One could argue that both have a strong policy support and have received attention from both industry and policymakers. Also, both tackle issues related to sustainable development through innovation. In the case of responsible innovation, democratization of innovation to tackle grand challenges of our time, including sustainable development. And in the case of circular bio-based economy, fostering, it is about Everything is about fostering a closed loop economy through new technologies and economic relationships for sustainability. So is it possible that both concepts, both practices, both developments can mutually reinforce each other? Now, as indicated, the circular economy tends to overlook these social dimensions of sustainability. And here, responsible innovation can provide an opportunity due to the democratic nature of responsible innovation. It is all about the inclusion of stakeholders representing society to put social issues on the agenda. So here you can see how responsible innovation can reinforce the efforts and the practice of circular and bio-based economy. Another issue in the circular bio-based economy is the oversimplistic goals and unintended consequences, which are often not taken into account. Also here, responsible innovation provides an opportunity because it provides a governance framework whereby wider considerations of the implications of innovation are included, and as a result, there's room for adjustment. So therefore, responsible innovation could further the role of the circular and bio-based economy in the system transition towards sustainability by providing the tools to incorporate the social logic and the necessary governance for a democratic, inclusive transition towards a sustainable development. On the other hand, responsible innovation can also benefit, I would argue, from the notion of the circular economy. Although there's an increasing amount of work on responsible innovation in the private sector, the conceptuality is mainly focusing on publicly funded research and innovation. And that is not a problem, but here you can imagine that the circular economy and the bio-based economy can be of help because it provides this market logic that is necessary to make this transition to a circular bio-based economy. So I come to a close. Regarding the third claim that I wanted to elaborate on together with you. Because the integration of social economic issues in the bio-based economy are often missing, responsible innovation is proposed as a strategy to integrate social economic issues in the transition towards sustainability. In this way, responsible innovation can substantiate the social logic which is claimed to be prerequisite for the transformation to a sustainable economy. In this respect, responsible innovation can be seen as a driver of such a transition. And I hope with this that we can have a discussion together about the role of sustainability in responsible innovation, and also in discussion with you guys out there in Brazil and in the other parts of the world. I would like to thank you very much for your attention. I want to thank my team because such a presentation I make, of course, together with my colleagues, and I look forward to the discussion. Thank you very much.